Have you ever said, "I'm fine" when you weren't, or kept your true feelings to yourself to avoid a conflict? If so, you're not alone. Codependent people often hide or stuff their feelings in order to keep the peace. But the truth is, stuffing your feelings doesn't help your relationships, it actually hurts them. And that's what I'm going to show you today. We're going to talk about why you may be stuffing your feelings and how to start expressing your feelings in a healthy way. But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So real quick, codependency is a relationship pattern where you sacrifice what you want in hopes of getting the other person's approval. So your whole focus becomes external and you lose yourself in the process. And because of this seeking approval, you tend to hide your feelings a lot. So in this video, I'll share why people who struggle with codependency stuff their feelings and what you can do to start expressing them in a healthy way. So why do people who are codependent stuff their feelings? Well, the first one is they're afraid of conflict. They assume that they're going to be rejected or abandoned in some way. So they will go to great lengths, even hurt themselves in order to avoid a conflict with the other person, because they assume their feelings are going to be met with abuse. Another reason you may be stuffing your feelings is that you may believe that it's safer than being honest. But what happens is when we deny how we feel, those feelings fester and they become stress in the body. And you eventually form resentments that are really hard to let go of. If you relate to this, say me too in the comments. This video is going to help. Another reason you may be stuffing your emotions is feelings of shame or guilt, feeling like your feelings aren't okay. Maybe in childhood you were told that you were being too sensitive or you were teased for crying, which led you to believe that your feelings were wrong, but they aren't. Part of recovery is learning how to honor your feelings, and that's what I'm going to help you do today. Another reason codependent people stuff their feelings is they tend to grow up walking on eggshells. Maybe you had a family member who was rageful or abusive, and you knew to keep quiet and keep the peace no matter what the cost, because that's how you stayed safe. So part of what I want you to hear today is that these reasons that you stuff your feelings are valid. They don't make you bad or wrong. There are definitely reasons that are tied back to childhood on why you stuff your feelings. And most of the time that's because we just don't feel safe enough to be honest. So how do you know if you're stuffing your feelings? Here's a few key signs. 1, you say that you're fine when inside you know you're hurting. You hold back your truth in order to avoid rocking the boat. You minimize your own needs, telling yourself they don't matter anyway, the other person's more important. You say yes when you mean no, even though you're resentful inside. These are some common signs that you may be stuffing your feelings. So an example might be a friend asks you to do a favor and you say, "Oh, no problem, I'll help you out," when inside you really don't want to and you immediately feel resentful. That's how you know you're stuffing your feelings, because you're really being dishonest in your relationships without even realizing it. Because I know if you're codependent like me, you have a big heart and you just don't want to cause them any pain. But that's the assumption we need to work on in our codependency recovery, is we tend to assume the worst is going to happen if we are honest about our feelings. And oftentimes that's actually not the case. So now let's talk about how to express your feelings in a healthy way. The first thing I want you to do is identify your feelings for yourself only. This means I want you to start paying attention to your body, because when you have a feeling, you'll know. You might have some muscle tension. You might have a negative thought in your head that says, "Oh, I really don't want to do this." You might get a stomach ache. Your body is going to tell you how you feel. The problem is in our codependency, we tend to dismiss our feelings for the sake of the other person. And I don't want you to do that anymore. I want you instead to just notice, even if it's just for today, how are you feeling when somebody says something to you? What happens when your feeling changes? Pay attention to those warning signs, because that is often the first step in expressing feelings, is to give yourself permission to have them. Then the next step is to start sharing them in baby steps with people who feel safe. I don't want you to start with people who are difficult. I want you to start with those people that already support and love you. You can start by saying how you feel about something in a new way. Maybe you typically don't. Maybe you keep your feelings to yourself. I just want you to practice saying how you feel about something, even if it's something minor in the conversation, because I want you to be able to start feeling like you can do that, because that's how your relationships are going to become more authentic. The other way you can start to express your feelings in a healthy way is use iMessages. I noticed that I felt really uncomfortable about what happened last week, or I have a difference of opinion, can we talk about it? Keeping the focus on you is often new in codependency recovery because we don't often pay attention to ourselves and honor our feelings. And that's what I want you to start doing, is to just say, I noticed that I have a difference of opinion here. Let's talk about it. Or maybe you're going to say, I'd rather go to this restaurant instead of having pizza all the time. Even just expressing a difference of opinion is a start. Another way you can start expressing your feelings in a safe way is to challenge that belief that being honest is going to cause problems and push people away, because oftentimes it's not going to. Now, if you're talking about highly toxic people, narcissistic people, yeah, you sharing your feelings may not be a good idea because it's not safe. But what I'm talking about is sharing it with people that already love you, and start seeing what it feels like for you to express a more vulnerable feeling. You can share a disappointment. You can maybe have the focus on you and share what's going on in your life. Because often when we're codependent, we're really good at talking about other people's lives, but we're not really great at volunteering information from our own life. And that's part of codependency recovery, is for you to start sharing your own personal experience, because that's how you're going to start to feel seen and heard in your relationships. And if you want more help with that, download my free guide on the 7 steps for healing one-sided relationships. So here's the thing. When you start to express your feelings, everything is going to shift. Suddenly your needs are going to count, and other people are going to know more of who you authentically are versus who we're pretending to be. When I've pretended to be something I'm not in my own codependency recovery, it doesn't feel good. I feel isolated and alone. But the more risks I've taken over the years to really show people who I am and what I stand for, that really impacted my relationships in a positive way, and it will yours too, as long as we're talking about people who are already safe and supportive. If you need those types of relationships in your life, then I would suggest checking out Al-Anon or Coda or some form of personal growth support groups where you can start building healthy relationships with like-minded people. Now, another common fear that comes up when people start thinking about expressing their emotions is being afraid of hurting the other person's feelings. So that is my next step for you, is I want you to go watch my video where I share some personal stories and tips on what to do to not hurt somebody else's feelings. Thanks so much.